There was a permanent Aboriginal population on Flinders Island until about 4,500 years ago, when a drastic change in climate forced them to emigrate south to Tasmania. With the coming of white settlers, the natives on Tasmania didn't have an easy time, and their decline was so dramatic that Governor George Arthur ordered in 1830 that the remnants of the full-blooded Aboriginal population should be relocated to Settlement Point on Flinders Island. At the site of the settlement, the chapel was the only remaining building. Inside there were a few pictures behind glass frames that told the sad story. The graves I saw at the cemetery seemed to only belong to white settlers. It's documented that at least 100 natives are buried in unmarked graves here. Unfortunately, because of the poor conditions, the scheme was short-lived. We followed the narrow track past a few houses hidden behind stands of tea trees. At the end of the track, a clearing takes you down onto the beach. Now, the rocks in this area are not brilliant blue, but there is a slight tinge of colour. Some of the rocks had red lichen growing on them, which stood out and was worthy of capturing on camera. We spent a fair amount of time at this location before moving on. We were now travelling south on the Lady Barron Road, with Mount Strasleki dominating the view in front of us. After leaving the sealed road, we turned onto Big River Road, which was well maintained. It wasn't long before we were passing Mount Strasleki.
Yeah. Makes me use them though.
At Fotheringay Beach, we took a stroll down to the shoreline. We observed a pied oystercatcher chirping away on one of the rocks in the shallows and attempted to get some photos, but it flew off before we got the chance. As we were leaving, we looked back down onto the beach, and the bird had returned and was foraging for food as the waves lapped at its feet. We had been to Trousers Point Beach before, and on that occasion I had managed to get some shots when the tide was out, but now we couldn't venture onto the beach because the tide was in. We spent the time just resting on a bench and enjoyed the views across the bay to the Granite Mountains. We flew back to Melbourne the next day, and thankfully the weather was kind to us. Considering the mixed weather during our stay, we managed to see most parts of Flinders Island. I'm sure if we'd done any of the walks, we would have come away with another view of this tiny outpost found on the eastern edge of Bass Strait.